Welcome back to the Monday Mashup, the football show we bring you each and every Monday on the Dynamo Podcast Network as part of the Upper Tier offering. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio version show are available through Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, wherever you pick up audio version show. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll get us on the Upper Tier on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter at _upper_tier on Twitter. And of course, anywhere else you pick up your podcast, you will find us there. Just search Dynamo Podcast Network or the Upper Tier. Joining me tonight for the Monday Mashup, a slightly smaller panel, but no less knowledge for sure. Ian, the podfather of the network. How are we doing, Ian?
All good, my brother. Thanks for having me as usual.
Oh yeah, not a bother at all, brother. And always joining me, of course, Darren McCumsky. How are we doing, Darren?
Hey lads, how are we? All good? Happy Mondays.
Awesome. Let's start with a review of the Premier League at the weekend. Started off on Friday. Newcastle won, Leeds won. Not a great result for either manager really at the moment. Both struggling at the minute, both with tough starts to the season. The vultures are swarming about Brucey already. I know we love Brucey. He's a real footballing man and stuff like that, and seems to be always shafted everywhere he goes. But Eddie Howe is hovering in the background at the moment, we hear. Interesting one, Darren, isn't it?
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of commentary on Friday night after the game, and I think anybody that listened in heard Gary Neville, and he was talking about Mike Ashley and stuff like that, and he was saying, you've got an awful lot of money at the minute, Mike. You don't necessarily need that much more, so just get Newcastle out of your hands because it's killing it for everyone. It's killing it for the management. It's killing it for the players, and worst of all, because they're a serious set of fans. It's killing them for the fans up in the northeast there. Some
of the best fans in the world, really, aren't they?
Really, really are. Like, they've had so little to celebrate over the years, and they've been, they turn out in their droves, and they're a hard working class city. They're not people necessarily walking around with big money in their pocket, So it's sad to see them in. Not that they're in a state. I mean, like, when I look at the squad, it's not a terrible squad. There's a couple of little bits and pieces that it could do with, but I think like it's gagging for a manager for me, and it's gagging for an owner that says, you know what, I'm going to back this manager and we're going to put a strategy in place and we're going to start bringing you through and we're going to have, a transfer plan and all of this stuff. The structure in the club just looks like it's, tits up from the bottom down pretty much.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at it. I had a slightly different view where I think when you look at Newcastle and the size of the club and the following and the packed house every week and the expectation, of course, I think the squad is kind of lacking a hell of a lot. And I think my worry is if Eddie Howe goes in there, I'm sort of trying to figure out what the hell will he do when he goes in there as well, because, the likes of Joe Linton up front and stuff like that, very, very poor.
I would have looked at them and thought like that they could have... the signings that Southampton made, for example, off the likes of a Chelsea, looking into that kind of cheap for loan pool or whatever. Like the boy Livramento, I've been watching him for a long time. He's on my fantasy team. He gets me points every week without a shadow of a doubt. I know, Darren, you were very impressed with him against United open day.
Very, very impressed. He was super. He's another one of those right backs to come out with Chelsea, the likes of Lamptey, and now you've got Livramento.
Exactly.
And you've the boy Reece James, who can't even get a look in either.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And like, I looked at Armando Broja as well. I thought he would have been perfect for a Newcastle kind of setup as well. Tall striker, has that kind of, obviously not to the level, but has that Didier Drogba kind of presence. He's tall. He likes to get stuck in. I think if you got an Eddie Howe in, I think it would be the first step in the right direction in looking at what Newcastle have, and then come January, maybe look at getting the likes of a Billy Gilmore would have been perfect for that if you have the right manager. Do you know what I mean? Someone like
Conor Gallagher
or Gallagher, someone like that. And you know what? The likes of a Chelsea or Liverpool or United or City that are willing to loan their prospects out would then go, Newcastle's a perfect club to send me boy, because it's 55,000 seater stadium, passionate fans that will get behind the kid and playing the right brand of football in that we want. So I think the first step, I think Eddie Howe would be a great step in the right direction. And then obviously, hopefully, that makes it a little bit more attractive for some of these owners. That, because I mean, it is a sleeping joint. It's like Aston Villa. I look at Villa and Newcastle in it, they're very, very similar in the sense that great history behind the club. I'm not saying it's glittered with millions of cups and stuff like that, but great history in terms of they are clubs that belong in the Premier League. They're a staple. They're an institution in our in our love of the game, in our love of the English game. So I think Eddie Howe, no offense to Steve, I love Brucey as well, but I think Brucey is a championship manager, you know what I mean? And I think he'll always have a job. So he's not going to go broke or go hungry, but I just think Newcastle need that young, innovative manager. And I think Eddie Howe, he's available. Get him in.
Yeah, I just hope. I suppose the feeling is it has to happen sooner rather than later. Doesn't maybe give Brucey another few games, see what happens, and then they're gonna have to pull the trigger because it's going to be difficult to put Eddie Howe in there if it's too late.
Yes,
you know what I mean. And I think they need to give him a shot at it. And as you said, give him that January transfer window to get in maybe a few loans and maybe one or two signs, stuff like that. And maybe
be mad money spent.
Well, what also comes into the equation then is, if it's too late to get Howe in, are you looking at the likes of Sam Allardyce to the end of the season?
You don't want that.
No, you don't. But if he can keep you opening in the summer, you can say, Eddie, here's a fresh page. Go out and write your story on it. Because
whereas I think, though, Darren, if they get Eddie Howe in now within the next game or two, I think then you're already getting a head start in the summer. Whereas a prospective owner will have to look at the project in the summer. Whereas if you see the project now, what Eddie Howe was trying to do now, he keeps them up, keeps them playing a good brand of football, make it difficult to play against. I think you're putting yourself in the shop window to a prospective owner, because these owners are chomping at the bit to buy a Premier League club, and Newcastle's.
I'm shocked that none of the Saudis have jumped on Newcastle.
Came close, didn't they, about a year or two?
The summer they tried, they were shut down.
They tried, that's right, but I know they were shut down on it was the right and fit and proper owners test, wasn't it, that they failed apparently? Which seems a bit ludicrous anyway, but I think it will be so good for Newcastle, and I genuinely think it would be a great story for the Premier League. I mean, if you've seen a Newcastle, go through this type of stuff that maybe City are going through now, where someone came in, big manager, a load of cash, like that, City would light up the league in that sort of a situation. And you're not going to have a situation where 3 or 4 years down the road, you're giving tickets away on voucher so you can fill a stadium. Like that place.
You know what I'd love, Darren?
Every week.
I'm not even a Newcastle fan, and you're actually making me excited here with that narrative, because imagine next season a new owner coming in. Imagine getting someone like an Antonio Conte in there, and Antonio Conte would fit that City perfectly. They would fall in love.
Massive character.
They would fall in love with him, and I think he would fall in love with that fan base as well. You know what I mean? It would be perfect. You know what I mean? And he would demand the best. You know what I mean? And that's what those fans, I think, deserve. Like, it's not often we always banter on this show and give out about opposition fans and stuff, but they are a different breed. They're up there with the Liverpools. You know what I mean? And the kind of the Celtics and all those, like the crazy fucking red hot fans that they're like sharks in the stadium.
And in fairness, Newcastle, when you go back and look at some of those brilliant Premier League historical moments, Newcastle is such a big part of that. The 4-3s with Liverpool.
The 4-3s,
down through the years.
Bastino and Spria.
Spria. I would love it if we beat them. All of that. And
that was one of the best moments of television.
And I think just the character that the area has in general, with it being working class and with the lads all just having the crack in the back, it would be glorious to see them challenging for a top 4 spot with a good side, with an owner with a few quid in their pocket, and with a decent manager. I think it'd bring loads to the league, I have to say.
Me too, yeah.
Let's move on then. Wolves 0, Brentford 2. Thomas Frank doing an absolute outstanding job with Brentford. Definitely the shock of the season so far. New stadium.
Great to see.
Fans playing a great brand of football. Tony, unbelievable playing there. But the fear is really Wolves, isn't it? They're in trouble, aren't they?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's again a club that I have a lot of respect for. I'm a big fan of Wolves. I love Molineux. I think it's a lovely stadium. I love just there's you get where I'm coming from. There's something nice about Wolves that makes sense. You know, they've always had.
They're a good traditional club, aren't they? You know, or they have been over the years. You know, but yeah, I tipped them to be relegated, so I'm not shocked if I'm honest. I could kind of see it coming. I think they're very, very light on goals. You know, again, we can talk about the boy Traore. Like up to a certain point, he is just unbelievable. And then from that, it's like he gets like, you know, 75% of the test right every time, and then the other 25% he forgets his pencil or something. It's nuts. Like,
it's like he has a panic attack up front almost.
It's
you know what I mean?
Mental, man. Like he couldn't possibly be that bad in training day to day. Because if he was that bad in training, surely somebody would say, do you know what? We don't need to play this boy on Saturday because we know what's going to happen.
All three of our clubs were testing the waters with him in the summer. Now, I don't know, you know, what he would offer you that, like, say, a Trent wouldn't offer, or Reece James or Asby, or like, you know, what United have. I don't think, you know, Wan-Bissaka, like what. I
don't think we were ever in for him, to be honest with you.
It's just the papers are probably just linking United
it's the well, and you know, if there's this, you know, paper doesn't really refuse ink most of the time, you know. But,
absolutely, yeah.
I think for the likes of a Spurs, where you have, you know, somebody like Kane, like if you've got a boy like that, you've obviously got Son on the opposite side. Spurs look a little bit light on that right hand side with Mora. He's good some games, he's not good other games. Like Adam obviously played with Nuno at Wolves. He knows the style of play. Would you play Adam on the right of Kane and Son? Like, to me, it sounds good. You know, and if you keep creating them chances, you don't have Jimenez in the box. You've got Kane who's going to take them. And, you know, when you play with better players, hopefully he brings the level up as well. But I just think at the minute, like, they're so short of a striker.
I think about playing him in a different position, maybe slightly deeper, because he's a powerhouse box to box.
Wing back, he would have been perfect.
But he's just not the guy that you want deploying the last finish, really, is he? He's the guy that you want going box to box like a powerhouse and absolutely putting Kane or Son in. Because it's his finishing, it's that last bit of his finishing that's a problem, really. You know what I mean? So if he dropped off, he could be very powerful in a Firmino role.
You see, is he because he's so big and physical and so quick, like he's lightning quick, you know, he gets onto the shoulder and he goes, boy, guys. And you know, when he starts moving at speed with the ball, lads are afraid to challenge him because they're like, I put a hand on this bloke of a yellow card all day long. And, you know, you commit a couple of them, all of a sudden.
And if I dive in,
right. So he's so dangerous in that sense. But I don't think you could necessarily maybe change where he plays so much. But I definitely think, you know, even when he does get some sort of a ball in the box, they've nothing. Like, Jimenez looks an absolute shadow of the man he was before.
Which is fair.
Absolutely. 100%. You know, we've seen it with Peter Cech. Peter Cech didn't come back the same goalkeeper as when he had the incident, you know. Yeah. And I completely understand it mentally, and it obviously does an awful lot to you. You know, but yeah, and I think they're missing the boy Neto as well. The boy Neto, he was a good player last year for them, a really good player. He's injured at the minute. Very unfortunate. The boy Trincao looks a good player. Jota, right? And they've the lad Daniel Podence, who at times again looks very, very good. And then other times, you know, you're just thinking, Jesus, this guy's he's not at the races at all. So, like, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of talent there, but I just think it's not working for them at the minute.
I think losing Nuno would be massive as well.
Huge. Well, I mean, if you look at how
quality player,
and you look at how structured he seems to approach the games. You know, you've gone from that to the new lad Bruno, isn't it? That's come in. He's just absolutely gung ho. He really is. Like, you know, that's at the entertainer stuff. Like, you score 2, we'll score 3 type thing. That's the way he's looking at games. Because he was like that at Benfica as well. But you're not going to do that with his Triforce of Jimenez.
That works. That worked with the Galacticos back in the day when you had Raul and Figo,
right?
And all the boys. But like,
not a recipe for the Premier League if you want to
maintain status. Absolutely.
No, absolutely, as Leeds well know.
Yeah, let's move on anyway. Burnley 0, Arsenal 1. Another 1-0, another clean sheet. Kind of I wouldn't say steadying the ship yet, but in fairness to Arteta, he's after getting a few players back now, and they're beginning to show certain signs there of finding themselves a little bit. But again, coming up this week, massive North London derby against Spurs. Now, how'd you pick a team in this North London derby coming up? Spurs absolutely so poor, and we'll get onto it later with Ian when we're talking about Chelsea, obviously. But I wouldn't like to be trying to pick the winner of that coming up this week.
No.
Liverpool 3, Crystal Palace 0. I think Liverpool very dominant. Palace at times had a little bit about them, but I think Liverpool were just levels above Crystal Palace, and Jota missed 2 sitters. There could have been a hell of a lot more in it.
Should have been more, yeah.
And again, a rotated side with 5 changes, so impressive to see. I was reading today, Klopp's used 21 players so far this season. That's fantastic, because that's
which is not his usual protocol,
not at all. So good to see it that guys are getting minutes and stuff like that.
Is that not about far more than they used the league the year you won the league? Did you not even use like 17 or 18 that season?
Yeah. Absolutely, but he's pushing the rotation out there. And in fairness, the way he's rotating as well, it's not devaluing us in any way in terms of quality. It's pretty decent, so good to see anyway. Yeah.
Well, he has that kind of protocol now, doesn't he? Where it's like you earn your stripes on this one. Do you know what I mean? It's that German military fucking, mindset of, if you're gonna get minutes on my team, you gotta make them count. You know what I mean? So he's. Yeah. It's like this season, it looks like some of the boys that he has there have earned his trust. I don't know, you'd watch him a lot more than me, Niall, but would that make sense?
I think you're right. Sorry to cut Carson. I think you're absolutely right. I think certainly with the boy Tamikas at left back, he's got a chance based on the performances he put in.
Exactly.
Rather than just, I have to give Robertson a break. He said, you know what, kid's up to a little bit. I can give him time here. I think but I think I'd be looking if I was the likes of Minamino. I don't think he's doing himself any favours at all, obviously, because he's struggling to get minutes in any competition at the minute. And I think that's probably the one spot I would say is a little bit light, is up front. Yeah. So it's strange that he's not trying to introduce him, and he wasn't terrible on loan with Southampton. He had some good moments and stuff. So I did think he might come back a little bit rejuvenated, but it doesn't seem to be working for him at the minute,
I'd say he'll get his chance tomorrow night in the Carabao Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays there.
And that's the point I was making. They're the minutes that Klopp will look at that like make them count now. Yeah. Because how am I gonna miss you if you're not gonna go away? Do you know what I mean? And like now he's gonna come in and basically hopefully do the business for you, but
and brought Origi back in out of the wind as well, because he's recognised the fact that we actually do need an actual striker on the bench.
Yeah,
he's a terrible finisher, but I have to say, when I was watching him in the game against AC Milan, like you can't fault him for his work rate. Like he does get stuck in. Do you know what I mean? He reminds me, he's a bit like a Batshuayi, isn't he? In the sense that they should get more goals than they do get, but it's like. Him, like Batshuayi was always great when you look at him when he did have that season with Chelsea, when he scored the winning goal to win the league against West Brom for Conte. I always thought that the two of them flattered to deceive, because they were very much so poachers in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like if you look at their goals, like they were always in and around the box. Yeah. But I think Origi has definitely kind of evolved this game a little bit, but it's probably because Klopp has kind of made him into whatever he needs him to be. But I mean, he quite clearly trusts him. So
I suppose he's coming in at a certain level as well. I mean, when you've Salah there and Mane and Firmino, but the problem is, in order to get him going, he's coming into these games when he does get his opportunity at times so rusty, because he just doesn't play. And it's hard to expect him to go out there. I mean, he had a couple of chances against AC Milan, a couple of crosses came in.
But I liked him pulling the trigger, though, is what I mean. I know he had one shot where he hit it way wide, but at the same time, you want to see that from your striker. It's like you encourage kids, at grassroots level as well, to take a pop.
Well, it's something we've been guilty of, because we've been trying to pass it too much.
Trying to walk the ball in,
doing the old Arsenal,
Man City 0, Southampton 0. Obviously a great result for the three of us, but
absolutely.
The build up to the game wasn't great, was it? Talking about like giving away tickets and
what is this, lads? Like, I mean, I have to ask you the question. I thought this was a gimmick. I thought like this was all our wind-up banter.
This is legit.
No.
Yeah, I know. And then I went and looked into it.
Yeah.
And it was like, say what you want. I know we always have banter, and like, you know, the lads will call my club like, plastic Chelsea fans and blah, blah, blah. We never had fucking empty stadiums. Like that 42,000 is always there. You know, fair enough, they put flags and all there just to get a bit of atmosphere because they go a bit flat. But I have never in my life with a supposed top level club, and they are a top level club in terms of what they've won.
Success, yeah.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted, lads. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's and people will constantly tell you, obviously, you know, I'm a big United fan. People will always tell you, people from Manchester, they support Man City. You know, the people that come to the United games are coming from everywhere else, you know. Well, the people in fucking Manchester are voting with their feet, lads, because there's nobody in that stadium week to week.
What's happening?
And to the point where they've discounted tickets, they've put them on discount websites. They were attached to a voucher system a couple of weeks ago, which was something like a pig's back, and they were doing 2 for 1 on tickets, and they still couldn't shift them. He gave tickets away at other games
and all as well, aren't they? They're doing like
there's so much of this going on. Like, if you're a big club, and you are right, like, you know, we can have the bit of crack and whatever, but like City are sitting at the top table of European football at the minute. They have been for quite a few years, you know, and with Guardiola, with the players they've got, with the success they have, you know, but they do have, you know, that big club mentality, and for them not to be able to put 50,000 people in a stadium every week is shocking, like genuinely shocking.
What's the sustainability, Darren? I know you're a numbers guy, big time, and I mean the sustainability of that over, say, the next 5-year to 10-year period is where it gets interesting, right?
I think this is where the difficulty is going to come in with the likes of financial fair play. So, I mean, City have got to show the books moving in a certain direction in order to say, you know, we can spend X amount of money on a player because we've got, you know, 50,000 a week paying X amount of money. You know, I know, you know, obviously the 19 home league games last year cost them about 100 million in match day revenue. So which would affect the balance in the books.
Yeah, of course.
That was with COVID. But for this, with City, if you're only filling your stadium, you know, half full, is your revenue, what's your revenue, like 40, 50 million a year in gates? Like, there's championship clubs doing that. You know, that's unbelievable.
Is this a thing where the Etihad, when it was built, right, you know, Main Road, was that their, and I don't mean their level of stadia, but what I mean is, was that their level of fan base? Like, that was their guaranteed every year. Well, and you see, you know, would be very noticeable, wouldn't it?
I think you know what the Etihad was built for originally, though, don't you?
No, go ahead.
The Etihad was originally built for the Commonwealth Games that they held. It was called the Community of Manchester Stadium, and it only got the sponsorship deal, and they sold the naming rights and stuff. Yeah. So it wasn't intended to be a football stadium, and it was after the stadium was built, City obviously put an eye on it and said, we could do something a little bit here. So, you know, it's similar to that, the Olympic Stadium where West Ham playing.
I remember that, the City of Manchester Stadium.
Yeah, and it's the similar sort of thing with West Ham. Like, it's not necessarily perfectly built for football, and West Ham have had to make quite a few adaptations to the ground to get the fans closer to the stadium and closer to the pitch and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like, when we spoke about Brentford earlier, the big thing for me was the lovely new stadium they have, but the way they did it on a much smaller level. Like, it's 24,000 or it's something.
But it's very like an old school stadium as well. Like, it's right.
But with a new skill facilities.
You know what I mean? I loved Upton Park when you were talking about West Ham there. I loved Upton Park. I loved the likes of Highbury, all those old stadiums. I didn't really love Highbury too much because we didn't have much success there. But no, you know what I mean? Those old school British stadiums are like part of the DNA of the football. When you take that away from someone like a West Ham or like a Main Road, you take that away from the City fans. Yeah, it's very, you know what I mean?
We've seen it so many times over the last, 10 to 15 years when clubs moved ground, they had difficulty. Southampton left the Dell and went to St Mary's. They struggled for a little while there. Derby County left the baseball ground. They went to Pride Park, same sort of problem. Sunderland left Roker Park, Arsenal. So it does happen. Like, there's a lot of history attached to those places, and history in itself can be, can err on your side when you're going into those big games and people are looking around the stadium. They're saying, Jesus, we never get a result in this place. Whereas guys were able to come into the likes of the Emirates and say, We've never been here before. We've a clean slate here. We can come out here as if it's our home turf and there's no problem here. Do you know what I mean? So you lose a bit of that as well, don't you?
Yeah, especially when you think about the culture that as you said, that working class culture at Main Road down through the years with Man City, you know.
Yeah.
It's like somewhere along the line when they moved into this situation of wealth and riches and success and the stadium and all that. They it's like they lost a bit of the fabric of their club and their culture, really, isn't it? And they're trying to find that again. But
they lost touch with their fans.
They don't really have an identity except success. And now most clubs, of course, will bite your hand off for that. But in reality,
that's why I was so glad. Like, you remember when Chelsea were looking at Battersea and all that, like they were looking at the Battersea, the famous chimneys around the corner that were going to make it into a stadium. I was so glad that didn't happen. And I was so glad that we had the Chelsea pitch owners, because that's been around since like pretty much the 20s, the 30s, that the Chelsea pitch owners have been there to kind of say no. And then obviously you won Theresa May around it for us, because we basically would have had a brand new, 60,000 seater stadium in Stamford Bridge. They were just going to build it lower, and the whole railway system and all that Abramovich had was great, but it still would be Stamford Bridge. You know what I mean? You're still in the same location. The history is still there. So yeah, I don't understand. A lot of these moves, they're not always good.
Yeah, let's move on anyway. Norwich 1, Watford 3. Even this early in the day, I think Norwich are dead and buried already. This is the yo-yo system here again.
Yeah, it is.
I was impressed with the boy Sarr at Watford. I think he had an outstanding game the other day. Some great goals.
Quality little player,
yeah. Aston Villa 3, Everton 0.
Delighted with that, I was. Yeah,
Wales coming off slightly there with Benitez, but Villa kind of starting to find themselves again. The boy Leon Bailey now was in the side and linking up with Buendia and Ings and stuff like that and all. But it was great performance by Aston Villa. It's not often you put 3 by Everton and keep a clean sheet. So hats off the team.
There's a lot of quality in that Villa side and in that Villa squad.
Really is, yeah.
Really is. Like they've built, and I said it again in the summer, they obviously got the Jack Grealish money in, but they didn't, piss it away. They made good boys, and Ings was just
a proper football club.
Ings was such a good signing. I'm just shocked that the Spurs and City didn't go after him. Obviously Spurs that you had an understudy for Kane if he's injured or pissing him on, and then City just are crying out for a striker, aren't they?
And when we're talking about old school stadiums like Villa Park, what a place to go and try and get it.
One of the best. Again, a proper workers' club. I mean, that's the metal city, the steel city. You know what I mean? Proper club.
Yeah. Brighton 2, Leicester 1. This to me was Graham Potter just turning back the clock, real old school way. I think they had something like 29 or 30% possession, yet they run out 2-1 winners. Leicester kind of bossed the game, but they just didn't seem to have any end product in the end. But Potter, he definitely does his homework on these teams. We've spoke about him so fondly on the podcast so many times. And you mentioned Darren, he's due a big job, isn't he? He's outstanding.
I think so. Absolutely. I think, and I've kind of had this idea for a little while. He came to the Emirates a couple of years ago with Osterlands, who he was managing in Norway, and he did pretty well against Arsenal that night, I think Arsenal did beat him in the end, but I mean, on a fraction of the budget, he was kind of putting it up to him a little bit. You could see then that he was being talked about. And I think the Brighton job is obviously, this is a job that's going to put him in the shop window, so to speak. I wouldn't be shocked to see him end up somewhere like Arsenal. And I know that's a massive shout and I know it's a massive job. But I don't think there's anybody, if Arteta was to walk out the door, if the lads were to say, listen, we're not happy with how things are going, I don't think there's a massive queue of managers that want the job because looking at the way things are going there at the minute, or B, there's the maybe caliber of manager that there has been over the last few years. Like most of the good managers at the minute have a gig. So I think they'd have to start looking in that kind of secondary market. And I think if that happens, Potter could certainly be on the radar.
100%, absolutely. Interesting start for Rodgers, though. He's still trying to figure out the conundrum there at the moment. Brought in Patson Daka and a couple of other signings, but just seems to have got off to a sort of a shuddery kind of start. So it'll be interesting to see.
I know we spoke about it obviously on Thursday in the preview, but I just think that the Thursday night football kills teams of the likes of Leicester. and West Ham as well. You know, at those times West Ham looked a little bit leggy, and you know, I think when you go from playing Premier League game once a week, as they were last season, to now playing European football, you've got the added travel, you know, you have all of those little things that are off the pitch as well. I just think it really stretches a squad. Now, I know obviously Rodgers, for me, did a great bit of business in the summer with what he brought in. Yeah. But to me as well, it doesn't look like he fully trusts all the lads there yet. We've seen very little of Daka. Samari kind of come on or played yesterday and stuff like that. And he seems to be really high on Ademola Lookman because he's played a lot of minutes so far. Yeah. And I think they'll Leicester be fine. You know, I don't expect them to be anywhere other than kind of top 8 maybe. Yeah. You know.
West Ham 1, Man United 2. Penalty awarded, brings Mark Noble on. I thought it was a terrible decision to bring him on to take the penalty. They should be using a guy that's on the pitch. Bad choice by Moyes. Not often that he does that. But what's your making, Darren, so far at United? They're kind of flattering to deceive, really, aren't they? They're getting the results, but they wouldn't be looking like, they wouldn't be giving you the confidence that they'd be like championship contenders, really, do they?
I wouldn't say that just yet, you know. Like, again, for me, at the minute, it's a results business, especially early on in the same. United have traditionally dropped an awful lot of points early on in the league over the last few years, which made it tough to mount any sort of a challenge in the kind of at Christmas and towards the end of the season. Getting 13 from 15 for us is a really good start, I think, because there was those couple of little banana skins. You know, we did walk out of Upton Park yesterday with the 3 points. We did the same against Wolves. We didn't manage to get the win away in Southampton. But listen, City have just been held by Southampton at the Etihad as well. So, you know, they're going to drop points to them as well. And then we've had the two hammerings of Newcastle and Leeds. So, you know, I think we're grinding out the results. I don't think you've seen the best of us yet. But I think when we start really hitting our stride, and you know, I think we'll go on a decent run. I'm happy enough now. I
I'd agree. I'd chime in to kind of back Darren up a little bit. I think they're getting those kind of, it's almost the old United way. Do you know what I mean? Where like opposition fans will say, "You jammy bastards," like, you know what I mean? To steal a quote from, you know, Monty Python, "You lucky bastard." But at the same time, I think what Niall is saying there as well is, I think, and Darren, I'm sure you would agree, there's still no like identity yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have Ronaldo, you have pieces there that are good. Do you know what I mean? And a great squad. There's a good blend there. But what I'm saying is, you don't have, and this could be to come. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I just think we don't know what United's identity is yet. The way we know Liverpool's identity, we know Chelsea's, we know City's. I think yous are yet to find that. And if you still kind of find that, that could be, you know, you could be looking at really a top 3 race with Liverpool, Chelsea, and United.
I think, and it's something I have been critical of Solskjaer, you know, is that we don't seem to look like we have a game plan at times, you know, and as you say, we don't have a style of play, and it does at times look a bit disjointed. Now, there was a solid, you know, 25, 30 minutes in the first half there. We were playing one-touch triangles and little squares and stuff, and it was really, really good. And we created an awful lot around that 18-yard box. And in the first half yesterday, we had 7 shots on target, which was more than any team in a half of football in the Premier League this season. So other than, you know, 3 or 4 good saves from Lucas Fabianski, you got the one on the post, you got a couple from Ronaldo, that game could have nearly been stitched up at half time. Now, okay, we didn't take the chance, or the keeper did do enough. But yesterday, and I mentioned it, you know, to a couple of United lads, yesterday for me, I did start to see a little bit of identity. That one-touch football, that quicker tempo, that higher pace of play. Not a higher press necessarily, because I don't feel like we're set up to press with Ronaldo, you know, but definitely, you know, a higher tempo of play where they look to get the ball in a little bit earlier, and knowing that they've got somebody that's going to get across the front, and because he's just looking like such an absolute poacher at the minute, you know. I think it's something as well that the lads are going to have to, you know, get used to that. At times, you know, certainly, you know, from the right and left backs, Sean, Wan-Bissaka, they were putting their foot on the ball and they were looking into the box, you know, recently to say, who am I trying to hit here? Whereas I think in the coming weeks, what's going to happen is as soon as the ball gets out wide, it's going to go straight in first time. And the ball's going to be in much, much earlier, knowing that you have a guy that can head the ball like Ronaldo can, and a guy that's going to move for you and get across the front like that. So we haven't had that in for a prolonged period. We've had it when Cavani played, but he's played so sporadically for us. You know what I mean? He's played so sporadically. There was times when we were putting balls in the box and you're going, we've Anthony Martial in there. He hasn't won a header in 6 years. Why are we putting crosses in, lads? This is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I think now that should suit us a little better. But I do take what you're saying as well,
Yeah, it's more the kind of the performance. When you look at the team sheet and you think about this week, such a poor result against Young Boys, and then you move into this match and you're only a penalty away from a really bad result. You know what I mean? When you think about it, I was very impressed with Ronaldo, the way he followed his shot in as well for the rebound and stuff like that was really, really impressive. You know what you're going to get with him. But I just think
we were also a penalty away from being 3-1 up because the ref absolutely stitched us up completely. Like the last one is a fucking stonewall penalty. It's not even close. It's not even close. And what are you talking? 35 seconds later down the far end, and Shaw gives away the penalty, which I do believe is a penalty based on, as Mark will tell us, the rules. But again, I don't feel like that rule is maybe conducive to good football.
Consistent enough as well. Do you know what I mean?
I just don't know how, if you're a right or a left back and you go out to close a man down, how you're supposed to maybe change direction without using your arms. Like, you can't play football with your arms down by your side. You know what I mean? So it's not, your arms are going to be out there.
I agree wholeheartedly with that.
I think the rule needs to be looked at. Now, I think, again, the ref got it right based on the rule. So that's not my issue. But I think the rule should be looked at. And I definitely think they should have had a look at the VAR. The ref should have seen the screen on the Ronaldo tackle,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's finish out with one of the performances of the weekend. Spurs 0, Chelsea 3. Ian, absolute game of two halves, but incredible 45 minutes of a second half.
Literally a game of two halves, yeah. I mean, again, we're looking at, I do firmly believe that you're looking at the best defensive team in Europe, without a shadow of a doubt, since Tuchel's come in. I don't think anyone would disagree with that, to be fair. I've heard even Gary Neville say it yesterday. They just seem to be able to soak up pressure, and they kind of see it's almost rope-a-dope, you know what I mean? It's like, we're just going to do the alley, rope it up, and then just fucking hit you when you least expect it and let people peter out. Kane, to be honest with you, it was very interesting because you could see Nuno's tactics was to try and get at Thiago Silva, and Thiago Silva ended up being man of the match. He had a fucking answer for absolutely everything that they threw at him. And then the second half, I thought that was just, again, great managers fucking, earn their salt when they're in the trenches. And literally that one change of taking Mason Mount off, who was shocking yesterday, and has been, for a lot of this season. And I love Mason Mount, but he's becoming a bit of a Mayfainer for all of our listeners that aren't Irish. That means very selfish. There's a couple of times where you're looking that he can slip Havertz through, and for whatever reason, he doesn't want. He doesn't want other people to get the glory or something. I think already in his head that he is Mr. Chelsea, whereas now you have a manager that isn't Frank Lampard that's willing to go, right, mate, you're coming off at halftime because it's not all about you.
I see the mounting ever so slightly differently, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just think he's very aware now that it's not Frank Lampard and that he has to do more in order to warrant a spot in the team. He's like over trying, and rather than doing the simple
about it
thing,
in the wrong way, though. Do you know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Because like he had a moment where he came in he done brilliantly. Like his turn of pace is fantastic. Do you know what I mean? There's certain times where he has that little Del Piero touch, and you know what I'm talking about, lads. Yeah. When Del Piero could just put the ball a yard and just turn someone and just get enough space where he could find. But the problem is he's not Del Piero. No one is. But I'm just saying he has that little ability to be able to turn someone. Like, his touch is absolutely exquisite. He's great at running with the ball. He's a ball of energy. But I just think his final decision making, which will come. Do you know what I mean? He still is only 22. He's not. You know what I mean? He's learning. But same with Havertz. Havertz kind of didn't play great yesterday either. There wasn't a lot of service. I think Lukaku as well was kind of hitting half chances. But the decision to bring Kante on, I mean, it's never a bad decision to bring N'Golo Kante on, arguably the best midfielder on the planet. You know what I mean? Pound for pound. Just when you look at Kante, the little nutmegs that he actually does with lads. Do you ever see the little nutmegs he does? No one notices it, and then he's got a yard. Like people were like, you remember you had these pundits, what are they play Kante in his natural position? It's like, listen, just because he's short and looks like Makelele doesn't mean he's a fucking CDM that sits and holds. He's not that kind of player. He's a box-to-box midfielder.
Yeah, as N'Golo Kante, what his natural position is, and he'll be able to let you know.
Exactly, yeah. He's not going to sit anywhere. Like, this is a lad who loves to run. But the decision, oh my God, it was fantastic. I mean, obviously, Thiago Silva gets the goal. Couldn't be happier for a player. 37 years of age. Imagine looking at the Premier League has Ronaldo and Thiago Silva, both basically on the verge of being 37 years of age, and don't look like they've lost a step. Do you know what I mean?
Turning the clock back big time.
I mean, the one thing that I noticed with Thiago Silva, do you remember after scoring the goal and he ran back and just had that last-ditch tackle? I was like, Jesus Christ, they don't make players like that. Do you know what I mean? I know you're going to mention it later, Niall, what John Terry said, so I'll leave that to yourself. But yeah, I think the game was crying out for Timo Werner as well, and I think people are, saying, "Oh, Timo, that's it, he's gone from Chelsea." No, I think the opposite. I think Thomas Tuchel is working very, very hard with him on the training ground, because you could see that little bit of link-up play with him and Lukaku yesterday as well. The cutback that he put in Rudiger for the third goal was absolutely fantastic. He has that bit of pace that Darren was talking about earlier. When you think about someone like a Danny Ings, or a Traore, I think it was the one that you were talking about, that can just get in behind. Yeah, it was just, do you know what? It was an absolute. It was we just destroyed Spurs the second half. We stole their will from them, basically.
It's amazing as well. I picked up on it yesterday, the way Kante's energy when he comes on is infectious throughout the rest of the team.
Yeah.
I
might have mentioned as well, just a little honourable mention for two players yesterday. Kovacic has been absolutely unbelievable since he's got that number 8 jersey. Good Lord. But Marcos Alonso, like, this is a different player we're seeing now at the moment. He's got pace. Yeah. He's able to track back. He's just absolutely, I mean, he was very, very close to being man of the match, as Gary Neville said yesterday.
Yeah,
he's absolutely fantastic.
I think you can probably drop that from 1 to 11 really since Tuchel came in. They've all evolved and changed so much and upped their game, and their level now is right up there now.
It's that German military fucking fitness though as well, isn't it? Because like you look at Azpilicueta, he looks like he's 22 again with his pace. So whatever way they have them training, that they're actually pacey players again.
It's the Tuchel stare as well, that fear of failure. You don't want any part of that whatsoever.
No.
But it's great to see that level come.
Darren, I know you wanted to chime in there. Sorry.
No, not at all. I think he's done a really, really good job with the back five. A really super job. I think, and just Pepe
was brilliant yesterday as well. By the way,
Pepe did all right. He did, yeah. But just to touch on the Thiago Silva thing, he always looked like in his earlier years for me, he was such a good athlete, but maybe didn't have the reading of the game as well as he should. Whereas now I think he hasn't lost as much athleticism as maybe guys would have at that age, but his reading in the game is just got so much better. He makes so many less rash challenges. He knows, like, this, even the amount of times he actually puts a tackle in is down. Like, good defenders don't have to tackle. They can jockey, they can show players the line, they can bring him in, they can bring him out. Most players who are tackling because they're on their, they're about to go on their arse. So they have to throw a tackle in the sense that, I need to stick this in now. And this is something I've spoken about with United fans, because United fans are saying, Wan-Bissaka, he's the best tackler in the league. He might well be one of the best tacklers in the league. But the problem is, defensively, he can get caught out of position so much that he has to be a very, very good tackler.
Yeah.
And that's where you look at the likes of Thiago and you think, Thiago Silva, and you think, Jesus, I don't even think I've seen him, put an actual tackle in, because he just read the game so well and was able to close stuff down and stay on his feet. And do you know what I mean? It's just clever.
It's mastery, isn't it? Like when you look at that, when you look at those three, Thiago Silva,
Rudiger, Christensen.
Oh my God, what a player! Christensen has become such a gem under.
It's like as if Thiago's in the middle and he has just spread that out to the two boys. All his knowledge in training has just spread out to the two boys. Did you see
that run from Rudiger where he basically shimmied by about 20 lads and hit the shot?
I still think he's your weak link.
No.
Rudiger. No. I think he's your weak link because I think he's an absolute hothead. And I think he does rash things. Now, I think at the minute he's getting away with them because he's got the two boys next to him and he's got Alonso who's doing pretty well at the minute. But for me, if I look at that back five, if I was to take anyone out of that, as a United fan, I'd be saying, you know what, I'd be telling Ronaldo, I'd be telling Fernandes, I'd be telling all the United boys, get all over that Rudiger kid because he has a mistake in him and he has a yellow and a red in him big time.
I disagree completely. Again, I think he winds players up. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, his pace and again his reading of the game. He's got that Marcel Desailly in him. Like he's that big frame. Like he looks that way to you. I get where you're coming from, and he was that player. But I think under Tuchel, he's a different animal. And I know Niall's a big fan of Rudiger. Niall would have Rudiger there with Van Dijk tomorrow if he could.
I like the balance of calmness and a bit of a lunacy in it.
You have to have a bit of shithousery, don't you?
I just don't think you lose that necessarily. And I think that's, the one in every 10, 15 games that he can just have those apparitions and you go, holy shit, what? You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I definitely, I hear you. I know exactly where you're coming from. I just think in terms of that back line, I don't think there's any player you could offer me.
And I'll tell you what I'll bring it back to. And I know what Niall is saying about this kind of lunacy and this kind of, this kind of stronger head that just slows things down. We had Vidic and Ferdinand. One, an absolute cannibal, and the other one just a really clever centre-back who knew how to play ball. But from time to time, he played against guys like Fernando Torres, and he just couldn't deal with it because that lunacy was going on. You know what I mean? And that's the only, Now, listen, there's not too many Fernando Torres in the league at the minute, thankfully for him.
I suppose
we had the best defensive partnership ever. I'm just saying, Carvalho, Terry, it was lovely. I miss it.
I suppose the flip side of that is Chelsea have no problem going down to 10 men, and I'm just saying that as a Liverpool fan. I'm putting
and especially at big stadiums. You know what I mean? It's like absolutely. No, I have to say it's speaking on the game, it's very hard to see. I think Gary Neville and Alan Shearer said it yesterday as well. Roy Keane also alluded to it. Yeah. I think Chelsea at this moment in time are the measuring stick in terms of just because how good defensively they are. I look at Liverpool and Chelsea kind of being the two, that really have their style and their identity down to a fine art. And I think it'll be United that'll be kind of knocking at the door there. Just with the consistency of results more so than their style of play. So it'll be interesting to see, what United do when they meet the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool. So looking forward to those games.
Some great fixtures coming up in the next 4 or 5 weeks anyway, that's for sure. Let's move on quickly to the Carabao Cup. I'm not going to dwell on it too long because obviously, it's hard to even pick sides. Everyone changes everything, especially at the level that we're at and stuff like that. So
and it's such a shit competition.
The milk cup.
It's very important.
When you're called after a Chinese energy drink, you're a shit competition, man. Absolute fact.
China.
Even in China, they wouldn't call it the Carabao Cup.
No.
They
probably call it the fucking the Maolin Cup.
So just to confirm, tonight's Monday mashup is not sponsored by the Carabao Energy Drink. Anyway, that's
well. My Maolin reference was the Big Trouble in Little China, so just think that it was a great film.
Has anyone had the displeasure of drinking a can of Carabao?
Yeah, the apple one. Yeah, it wasn't.
It's like horse piss. It's disgusting.
Yeah. They wouldn't drink it at the final last year. They were handing out the cans and the players were walking by it.
It was putrid.
It's not good. It's not
good.
Let's go through it. Man City versus Wickham, Norwich versus Liverpool, interesting tie there. Depends who they play. Chelsea versus Villa and United versus West Ham are obviously the toys of the round, no doubt about it. But again, it's what sides people put out. And then Wolves versus Spurs. I just kind of picked in around the top 6 in terms of fixtures. There's a lot more fixtures, but these were the main ones that stuck out to me as being sort of matchups.
When you say the top 6, did you just throw Spurs in to throw Graham a lifeline, or what happened there?
I threw Wolves in for Ted.
Oh, okay, right. glad we got that sorted.
No problem. Graham's at home, he's sick in his bed, so I had to give him something.
Absolutely.
We wish you well, Graham. I'm sorry we put you in bed sick.
He's a great lad, our Graham.
Yeah,
thoughts are with you, my brother.
He's missing as much tonight as that Spurs team was in that second half. But
yes,
let's get into some of the
contributing more.
Let's get into some of the hot topics. FIFA, we sort of preempted this last week. Maybe FIFA are looking at our podcast, who knows? But FIFA to hold an online match summit to review the current calendar, which we all called out for on last week's matchup. But this whole international thing is just becoming ridiculous. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Because they're still sort of thinking about this 2-year World Cup and all sorts of stuff that's going on. One end that's close to you, Juventus, 210 million loss. But apparently they're holding out for the rebirth of this rejigged ESL, if you like. They're in trouble, aren't they? These powerhouses are in trouble financially, aren't they? Big time.
Well, I think, I don't know, with the Juve thing, it's a weird one because, I mean, they're owned by very fucking powerful people, the owners of Fiat, the Agnelli family. I mean, there's money there within that organization that can definitely bail them out if need be. So I'm not in fear of Juventus going out of existence. Do you know what I mean? Like I would be with, say, Barcelona. But yeah, a lot of these European teams, I don't know what the story is. I think it's they don't have the money that the Premier League has to offer. So they're kind of trying to find ways to, give themselves a lifeline. It's very, very baffling. Like I say, I think Juventus are in a position that they would be more inclined to be saved purely because if the owners have to fucking book up and put the money in, I think they would. We know with AC Milan that they have the American owners, and then Inter Milan.
Chinese, aren't they?
I think it's not Inter Milan that have the Chinese owners.
Inter's the Chinese one.
Yeah,
is it? You thought AC you had the Chinese lads now? Oh,
no,
maybe not.
Owners. They did at one point. So, I mean, for me, it's actually heartbreaking, really, to look at the likes of the Serie A, like a league that I grew up with, that we all grew up with, to be fair.
Yeah. Sunday afternoon, 4:00. You were waiting on the game after the dinner every week.
James Richardson,
right. And we were given some absolute classics. Like, I mean, look at the players we got to watch. In the mid-90s. Roberto Baggio, Alessandro Del Piero, Paolo Maldini. Like it was sickening. Watching some of the sides, and it even seemed like the really bang average players on their teams were super good as well.
And they were. I remember a player for Udinese. If you guys remember Amoroso. Brazilian boy used to score 20 odd a season, and it's heartbreaking to see. I mean, like the Serie A just before COVID looked like it was picking up a little bit, and it has done, to be fair. I mean, that was a big fight feel at Anfield the other night with AC Milan back in town, and it's hopefully they get something sorted with that because it's wrong. We need these leagues. Do you know what I mean? We need these leagues. And even though I tease with Barcelona and all, we need these clubs. You know what I mean? They're a staple of our game. And this ESL isn't the answer.
Absolutely. I think every football fan agrees with that anyway. Let's move on. We touched on the name with Chelsea. John Terry coming out with huge praise for Thiago Silva, of course, like the rest of the footballing world anyway, but said he wished he had the chance to play beside him. In fairness to John Terry, he's had some great partners in his time anyway.
He hasn't had to worry. I mean, when you go from Marcel Desailly and Frank Leboeuf to fucking Ricardo Carvalho and William Gallas, and then obviously the likes of, even in later years, the likes of Alex. And, Alex wasn't a bad little player, in fairness to him, but like
he was.
Yeah,
he was.
He had a great free kick, though. He had a great free kick in him, though.
Yeah, and David Luiz, sideshow Bob. He shouldn't have got into the stadium.
David, I mean, the poor things that Terry had to put up with in later years with the likes of David Luiz and all, like their years he won't get back. But and then Gary Cahill as well. I'm sorry, Cahill's probably one of the most overrated defenders in history.
I can't believe there's people that rate him at all.
Mr. Slide Tackle, a great slide tackle, but going on to Darren's point, what got you into the fucking mess in the first place? Yeah. But Terry, I mean, you're talking arguably the best Premier League defender of all time. And you know what I mean, it would have been a joy to, it's fantasy football we're talking about here. It would have been a joy to watch Thiago Silva and John Terry. For me personally, would have been scary.
Absolutely. Sad news really coming. Derby going into administration.
Yeah.
Really sad to see this. The mismanagement of clubs, we've seen it down through the years. I mean, I suppose the big one for us initially would have been Leeds. And then from Leeds, we've seen it with, the likes of Sunderland and Derby and, hearing there during the COVID pandemic and stuff like that Bury had gone out of business and they were gone. Not only administration and demoted, but gone. Wiped off the face of the footballing planet, basically, So it's sad to hear these stories, such mismanagement and stuff like that. But I suppose when you look at Derby's case, I mean, their investment was made on the basis, I think, of getting into the Premier League, and the money was flushed in there on the basis of that. Yeah. And it just, for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. And I think when you roll that dice or spin that roulette wheel, you're in very dangerous ground if you don't pull it off.
They absolutely didn't learn anything from Leeds United, which is the sad part. Like Leeds were such a big club and are such a big club with history, but Derby should have seen what happened to Leeds and how they rolled the dice and how it didn't work, and they just didn't learn. Somebody again thought it was a good idea to bring these lads into a championship club on big wages, on big transfer fees, and roll the dice on the basis that we get to that promised land. And it's just not that easy. And to be honest with you, the championship for me, other than the Premier League, I feel like it's a serious league. It's one of the top leagues in Europe for me. Especially when you talk about competitiveness. On any given day, it's so difficult. I don't know whether you've looked at the results from the weekend. I looked at the results. I was working on Saturday, and Saturday evening, I was having a little flick on the phone. I went on the live score. Almost every result on Saturday went the opposite way that I would have backed. Now, I'd have been backing probably favourites in the games, and they all went the other way. So it's such a tough league. So guaranteeing yourself a spot in that top 2 or even in that top 6, which then becomes another lottery, getting through, penalties and all that jive.
Playoffs are heartbreaking.
Playoffs are hard, man. We've seen really good teams over the years not get through playoffs. And I think you're 100% right, Niall. The mismanagement and, guys at board level doing stuff that just shouldn't have been done. And now all of a sudden it's the fans and the players. And as Wayne Rooney said himself, he said, the staff at this club now are going to struggle to pay their mortgage. He said, and that's not good enough.
And especially with Derby County, they've such a rich history as well. I mean, I go back to Jim Brown's time there and all. He was outstanding when he was there as a manager. What a footballer man as well, We'll move on and we'll see how it progresses and maybe something can be done or something like that, That great Man United player, Michael Owen, never short of a one-liner to deliver, But this week he delivered 2. The first one was that Messi has weakened PSG, which I thought was classic Michael Owen. And the second one, he blasted Lingard for not celebrating his goal for United against West Ham.
He's a cabbage.
Which says a lot about the man, doesn't it, really?
He's an absolute cabbage. He really is. I thought, actually, it was one of the most enjoyable parts. It was one of the most enjoyable parts of the game for me yesterday was Lingard obviously came out to warm up. And as he came down into the corner, the West Ham fans stood up to applaud him. Yeah. And you just thought, that's a lovely show of respect. you know. And Lingard in return scored the goal and went, you know what, you show me a bit of respect. I'm going to show you a bit of respect, and I'm not going to run off and fucking celebrate like an idiot.
I have no problem with
corner
that.
flags.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the no celebrate. This idea that you should shit on, you know, a place that you had, you know, fond memories. I think it's absolute bollocks. It'd have been like if Torres that time had a scored against Liverpool. Remember, he was through on goal and he passed it to Willian.
Yeah.
And Willian should have fucking passed it to Torres. I guarantee he wouldn't have although he might have celebrated, to be fair. He might have saw that jerseys burned.
But especially when, you know, the narrative over the last little while has been respect.
Yeah.
You know, there's a guy that's going out and shown, right?
Yeah.
There's the ultimate respect. The guy's gone and shown a bit, and then you've this absolute, you know, Dumbledore stuttering through sentences on BT. He is an absolute cabbage. Of no idea how they let him on anywhere.
He's
you know,
and
he's a clown.
And
really
especially,
is.
It's not that easy to earn the respect of the West Ham fans either.
No,
they're staunch, you know what I mean? So it says a lot, you know.
And they've not a football and knowledge at West Ham, you know.
Yeah,
I agree.
One for you, Wayne. Qatar looking to ban unvaccinated players for the World Cup.
I don't know. It's gone mad, isn't it? Like, I mean, you know, it is what it is. I don't even want to get into it, to be honest with you. It's politics, and it's I don't know what to think about it, you know. Like, fair enough.
I looked at that statement and I was thinking, right, so imagine Ronaldo and Messi are unvaccinated. Are they not going?
Yeah.
You know,
it's exceptions there, wouldn't there? There'd be exceptions there.
I would have thought so, but it was an interesting concept, and it was Qatar themselves talking about it. It wasn't FIFA driven, you know what I mean? So,
well, listen, Qatar shouldn't even be involved in this. I mean, it's all a crock of shit anyway, the fact that there's even going to be a World Cup with Qatar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an absolute disgrace. Again, it's all political anyway.
Political and for financial gain. You know,
absolutely.
Like, imagine taking them to a country with that kind of heat to play a World Cup and expect it to be any kind of spectacle for fans watching at home. You know, like it's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
It's again, it's another narrative of playing people off against each other. Like, you know, it's like I said, you know, you or me shouldn't know who's vaccinated. You know, that's personal business at the end of the day. As long as you're taking protocol, if you're not vaccinated and you're wearing your mask and you're doing, you know, your due diligence and being hygienic and stuff like that and not putting anyone in danger, that's absolutely, you know, I think that's fine. But the fact that we all know who's vaccinated and who's not, like, and people are actually asking that question, it's like asking someone, did you get your cervical checkup? You know, imagine asking a woman that, you know, it's no difference. It's private information. And again, I think it's another way of playing people off against each other, and it's wrong in my opinion. But look, it's a conversation for, you know, for a different type of show. I just think, I think it's wrong on every level, personally. Yeah.
I'm gonna round out the show tonight. We lost another legend of the game yesterday. One Jimmy Greaves. Heartbreaking to me, because we lost Ian St. John as well. Now, I never got to experience a lot of these guys playing, even me being the senior citizen on the podcast. But I did get to experience Saint and Greasy, and it was a show that I grew up on, and it generated my love of football.
Amazing show.
But when we talk about these guys, I mean, Jimmy Greaves and Ian St. John, I mean, they were the Laurel and Hardy of football, weren't they? They were unbelievable. The passion from them, the pairing of them, and now they're back again reunited. God only knows what's going on up in heaven with that football show right now.
Plenty of beers, I'd say. Plenty of beers now.
Absolutely electric. But I'd like to dedicate the show to Jimmy Greaves tonight, and it's only fitting that we do it. But I'd like to run down, lads. I'll give you some of his stats, because it's hard to comprehend, you know, the way the game has evolved, just how good these guys were.
I watched the documentary on Jimmy Greaves, and it's an old Chelsea video I had. It was, believe it or not, there was a history Chelsea video before 2004. There you go, lads. And I have it in my possession.
It was on the back of a postage stamp, was it?
On VHS. No, I bought it in chapters. No, but it was a beautiful documentary, because it showed, like, when Stamford Bridge was built in you know, and the club came to be in 1905, and it showed the whole kind of, dynamic and how the club was built. But Jimmy Greaves was an absolute phenom in the youth team, and obviously came on and scored an absolutely astronomical amount of goals before he signed for the enemy. But when people think about why Chelsea and Tottenham hate each other, like we had Terry Venables, another youth product that people don't forget, considered a Tottenham legend, but he also had a great career at Chelsea as well, along with George Graham.
Isn't it mad to think down through the years that the Chelsea youth system,
yeah,
and the amount of players it has produced.
Yeah.
And we've only spoken on the podcast obviously about Billy Gilmore and
the modern era, like
I mean, but when you think about the names that it churned out and produced, that youth system has always been there producing quality players. Like, it's mad.
Yeah, and a United legend as well. Tommy Docherty was the manager at that time as well. He went from United to Chelsea, and he said he had very fond memories of that. And as I said, Jimmy Greavesy, in this video, it actually shows a picture of him in his downtime at home, and he was literally on the streets of London kicking a ball against a brick wall.
Yeah.
Like, I swear to God, it's a memory that always instilled. And what he was doing was he was kicking the ball with his left foot to work on his weaker foot.
Yeah.
And that was and believe it or not, that was something that I took. Obviously, I wasn't a pro, but something I took, I remember as a kid, and went, I'm going to go out and do that. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to just kick the ball with my left foot to kind of become familiar with it. So,
it's mad when you go back and look at the old pictures of him, even the old black and white pictures and stuff like that. He was always in his gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's only later in life, of course, that he dressed up when he was doing the shows and stuff like that. But most of the pictures you see, even if you Google them today, he's sitting in his gear in a locker room, or he's sitting in his gear out there, or he's rarely out of his shorts on this trackie, like, when you see those old pictures,
It's crazy when you think about it. Like, when you think of the strikers that came from that time, Tommy Docherty, like Peter Osgood as well, the king of Stamford Bridge, as they call him. Like, there was something there within that they just loved football, and not just Chelsea. I mean, all the lads did. All the, there's so many legends, but we're talking about Greavesy, and my God,
it was a little bit before my time. Greavesy, just a little bit. But it would have always been something that my dad would have always said to me, when you'd say, so United had signed somebody, I'd say, oh, Dad, my dad was an Arsenal fan, I'd say, oh, Dad, wait to see this fella, like, he's unreal and blah, blah, it just roll off the out of his tongue, and he'd say, Jimmy Greaves, he always harped back to how he was just, he said, you've never seen that kind of clinical striker like Jimmy. He said he literally just needed half a chance and boom. He said, and my dad would have always called it, he said, the onion bag would have been bulging. Yeah. That was the way.
Well, look at the stats. Like, Chelsea, 157 appearances, 124 goals. Tottenham, 321 appearances, 220 goals. West Ham, 38 and 13. He actually had quite a short career, really. It was 13 years as a professional, I suppose. Not that short, but like, these lads played like 60 odd games a year on shite pitches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With a ball that weighed about 10 stone.
The ball was bigger than some of these lads.
Which meant then in later years, a lot of them suffered because of it. Because of the weight of that ball, the head of those balls, and
they became addicted. I mean, these boys would be drinking pints before the match and having a fry, and that was their pre-game ritual, was having a fry, which there's a lot to be said about it. It wasn't that these lads weren't dropping dead, on pitches or having heart attacks on pitches. There's over sports science as well, to a point, but. Jimmy Greaves, my God. And Niall, I remember that show. That went on into the 90s, didn't it?
Oh, it was incredible.
I remember seeing it as a kid. My nanny used to watch it, even though she wasn't a football fan. But
and then I think it came back for a couple of years as well, and they rebooted it at one stage.
Yeah, they did. Because I remember seeing it as a kid. And my nanny used to watch it on a Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
And then I think the two boys got together, didn't they? Do like a question of sports style competition?
Yes,
that's right.
Which was brilliant as well. Lads, I'm gonna leave the show with one quote. It's a quote that I posted on Twitter that basically sums up the man. I posted it yesterday on all our Twitter accounts and stuff like that. And what it was he turned around and he said, I once went on a goal drought and it was the worst 15 minutes of my life. And I just thought that absolutely summed up the man brilliantly in terms of his fun, his passion, his desire for the game, his clinicalness, if you want, Darren, his will to score and win and always be competitive. And I mean, you can see it, the stats speak for themselves, but he was more than just a footballer. He was a character. He loved football right till the day he passed away yesterday. He was a football fan and a football man through and through. And we'll miss him. He's reunited now with Ian St. John. St. and Greasy is back, and one day we'll probably view it with any luck. But this is how we're going to sound out the show tonight, boys. Just to let you know as well, we will be doing a short remembrance piece. Myself and Ian will be getting together this week to go through the career of Jimmy Greaves. How fitting it is. But till next time, guys, this has been your Monday Mashup. YouTube, Dynamo Podcast Network, Spotify, Podbean, iTunes for audio versions of the show. Drop your comments down below. Let us know about Jimmy Greaves and anything we spoke about on the show. Till next week, a pleasure, my man.